You wake up and within 60 seconds it starts. The low hum of anxiety. The thing you have been avoiding. It sits in your chest like a stone you swallowed in your sleep. You reach for your phone, you scroll, you let the noise of other people's lives drown out the quiet voice telling you that there is something you need to face. And you tell yourself you will face it. Later. When you feel ready. When you feel brave. Here is the costly mistake most people make. They think courage is a feeling. They think it is something that arrives, something that washes over you like a wave of confidence, something you wait for the way you wait for good weather. And so they wait. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel bold. They wait for the fear to subside. And while they wait, the thing they needed to do does not get done. The conversation does not happen. The decision does not get made. The life they wanted does not get lived. The truth nobody wants to say out loud is this. Courage was never a feeling. Courage was always a decision made in the presence of fear. The fear does not go away first. The fear is there. The fear is always there. Courage is what you do while the fear is still in the room. Say that to yourself. Hold it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of fear. And the person who waits for fear to leave before they act will wait forever. Because fear is not a visitor. It is a resident. It lives in the house of every meaningful thing you will ever do. Think about what fear actually is. Not the word. Not the concept. The actual physical experience. The tightening in your chest. The shallow breathing. The way your mind starts generating escape routes before you have even assessed the threat. Your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is trying to protect you. But here is the thing nobody tells you. Your body cannot tell the difference between a real threat to your survival and a threat to your comfort. Your nervous system does not distinguish between a lion in the brush and a difficult conversation you have been putting off for 3 weeks. The alarm sounds the same. And so you obey the alarm. You retreat. You avoid. You rearrange your entire life around the thing you are afraid of, and you call it being sensible. You call it being careful. You call it waiting for the right time. But what you are actually doing is letting fear make your decisions for you. And every time you do that, every single time you let fear choose for you, you teach yourself something. You teach yourself that fear is right. You teach yourself that the thing you were afraid of really was too dangerous to face. You reinforce the alarm. You make it louder next time. This is what the Stoics understood so deeply that it became the foundation of their entire way of life. Epictetus, who was born a slave and walked with a permanently damaged leg, taught a practice called the discipline of ascent. And the core of it is this. Between something happening to you and your response to it, there is a space. A flash. A first impression. Something happens, and before you even have words for it, your mind produces an initial reaction. A flinch. A pull. A surge. That first impression is not you. It is not your judgment. It is not your decision. It is just the body doing what the body does. The discipline of ascent is the practice of catching that first impression before it becomes a judgment. Before it becomes a story. Before it becomes a decision you never consciously made. Most people never catch it. The impression arises and they are already gone. Already obeying it. Already retreating. Already scrolling. Already reaching for the comfort that will numb the feeling for the next 20 minutes. They have surrendered before the battle even began. And they will do it again tomorrow. And the day after that. And the day after that. Until the pattern becomes so deeply grooved into their nervous system that they no longer even notice they are doing it. They just call it their personality. I am just not a confrontational person. I am just anxious. I am just not ready yet. No. You are not those things. You are a person who has practiced surrender so consistently that it has become automatic. And anything that has been practiced can be unpracticed. Anything that has been trained can be retrained. Here is where the reframing changes everything. Fear is not a signal to stop. Fear is information. It is data. It is a compass. And the direction it points is not away from danger. It points toward the next frontier of your growth. Think about the things you are most afraid of. Not the abstract fears. Not the fear of death or the fear of the unknown. The specific ones. The ones that come with a face and a name and a situation. The conversation you are afraid to have. The project you are afraid to start. The truth you are afraid to tell. The person you are afraid to become. Now ask yourself a question that almost nobody asks. What if the intensity of your fear is directly proportional to how much this matters to you? What if the thing that scares you most is the thing you most need to do? This is not motivational rhetoric. This is observation. Fear shows up when something is at stake. If nothing were at stake, there would be no fear. The presence of fear means you have skin in the game. It means this matters. It means the outcome could go either way and you care about which way it goes. And so the fear is not your enemy. It is your body's way of telling you that you are approaching something significant. The question is not how do I make this feeling go away? The question is what is this fear telling me to do, and should I listen to it? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes fear is telling you not to walk down that dark alley. Sometimes fear is telling you that this investment is too risky or this person is not trustworthy. Fear is not always wrong. It is a tool. It should be consulted. But it should never be obeyed blindly. You consult the fear. You listen to what it has to say. And then you decide. You. Not the fear. You. This is the distinction that changes a person's life. The coward obeys fear without consulting it. The reckless person ignores fear entirely. The courageous person sits with fear, hears it out, and then makes a decision with full awareness of what the fear is telling them. That is the discipline. That is the practice. And it is not something you do once. It is something you do every single day. Because here is the other truth that nobody wants to hear. Courage is a muscle. And like every muscle, it atrophies without use. You do not build courage by waiting for a grand moment to arrive. You build it in the small moments. The micro-decisions. The tiny acts of boldness that nobody will ever write a book about. The text you send instead of avoiding. The meeting you walk into instead of calling in sick. The thing you say out loud instead of swallowing for the fourth time. Every small act of courage is a deposit. And the account grows. And one day, when the large moment arrives, when the thing that actually matters is on the line, you will reach into that account and find that it is full. Not because you were born brave. But because you practiced. Because you showed up in the small moments when nobody was watching and nobody was counting and it would have been so easy to stay quiet. Most people call this a morning. The Stoics would call it a surrender. You wake up. You feel the anxiety. You reach for the phone. You scroll. You avoid. You numb. You distract. You have already made your first cowardly decision of the day and you have not even gotten out of bed yet. And the day has not even started and you have already told yourself that fear is in charge. What if the first decision you made every day was a courageous one? Not a large one. A small one. The cold shower instead of the warm one. The difficult task first instead of last. The honest reply instead of the comfortable one. The silence instead of the noise. These are not grand gestures. They are training. They are you telling your nervous system, day by day, decision by decision, that you are not a person who obeys fear. You are a person who acknowledges fear and acts anyway. There is a concept that Carl Jung brought into the modern vocabulary. He called it the shadow. And the shadow is everything about yourself that you refuse to look at. The fears you will not face. The desires you will not admit. The impulses you push down and lock away because they make you uncomfortable. And here is the terrifying part. The fears you avoid do not disappear. They do not dissolve. They do not quietly leave the room. They go underground. They move into the dark. And from the dark, they govern you. They make your decisions for you. They choose your relationships. They set your limits. They draw the boundaries of your life. And you never even see it happening because you have convinced yourself that you dealt with all that. You moved on. You are fine. But you are not fine. You are managing. You are coping. You are building a life around your fears instead of building a life through them. There is a difference. And you know the difference because you can feel it. You feel it right now. That low-grade unease. That sense that something is missing. That quiet suspicion that you are capable of more than you are currently demonstrating. That is not anxiety. That is your own potential knocking on the door from the inside. And the only thing standing between you and it is the fear you keep refusing to face. The Stoics understood something about fear that most people miss entirely. They did not see fear as something to be eliminated. They saw it as something to be walked through. Marcus Aurelius spent nearly 20 years as Emperor of Rome. He faced war, plague, betrayal, the deaths of his children, political treachery, and the relentless weight of governing an empire that was constantly threatening to fracture. He was not a man who lived without fear. He was a man who had learned to act in the presence of it. And he learned it the same way everyone learns it. By doing it. By standing in the fear and taking the next step and then the next step and then the next step. Not because the fear went away. Because the decision was made. The decision was made before the fear had a chance to vote. That is the key. That is the entire practice in one sentence. You make the decision before the fear has a chance to vote. You do not wait for a consensus. You do not wait for everyone in the room to agree. The fear will always vote no. The fear will always counsel retreat. The fear will always make a compelling case for why today is not the day. And if you wait for the fear to come around, you will die waiting. So you decide first. You decide in advance. You decide what kind of person you are and what kind of person does when the moment comes. And then when the moment comes, you do not deliberate. You execute. You have already made the decision. The fear is just noise in the background. It is the sound of your body doing what bodies do. You let it make its noise and you do the thing anyway. Now let me walk you through what this actually looks like in practice. Because the danger of all this is that it sounds like a speech. It sounds like something you listen to and nod along to and then close the tab and go back to your life. And nothing changes. And tomorrow you wake up and the fear is there and you reach for the phone and the cycle continues. So here is the practice. Here is what you actually do. First, you name the fear. Not vaguely. Not generally. Specifically. I am afraid of having this conversation because I am afraid they will leave. I am afraid of starting this project because I am afraid it will not be good enough. I am afraid of speaking up because I am afraid people will think I am foolish. You write it down. You say it out loud. You drag it from the dark into the light. Because the shadow only has power in the dark. The moment you name it, the moment you look at it directly, it shrinks. Not because it was never real. But because you can see it now. And what you can see, you can work with. Second, you examine it. You ask whether this fear is rational. Is the threat real? Is it proportionate? What is the actual worst-case scenario? Not the vague cloud of dread. The specific, concrete thing that could happen. And then you ask whether you could survive it. Not whether it would be pleasant. Whether you could survive it. Because the answer is almost always yes. The worst-case scenario is almost always survivable. It is uncomfortable. It is painful. It is not what you wanted. But it will not destroy you. And when you realize that, the fear loses its sharpest edge. Third, you refuse to let the fear decide. You acknowledge it. You do not suppress it. You do not pretend it is not there. You feel it fully. You let the discomfort exist in your body without fighting it. And then you act. Not after the feeling passes. While the feeling is still present. This is the part that feels impossible until you do it once. And then it feels like the most natural thing in the world. You act with the fear in the room. You speak with the fear in your throat. You move with the fear in your legs. And the fear does not go away. But something else happens. You discover that the fear was not a wall. It was a curtain. And you walked through it. And on the other side was not the catastrophe you imagined. It was just the next room. The next moment. The next step. Fourth, you repeat. Because once is not enough. Once is an event. Repetition is a character. You do it again the next day. And the day after that. You seek out the small discomforts. You volunteer for the conversation nobody wants to have. You raise your hand when the room is silent. You say the thing that needs to be said. And each time, the muscle grows. Each time, the gap between the fear arising and your action shrinks. Until one day you realize that the fear is still there but it no longer controls you. It is just weather. It passes through. You remain. Now there is something deeper here that I want you to understand. Because courage is not just about you. It is not just about your personal fears and your personal growth and your personal comfort zone. That is where it starts. But it does not end there. And if it ends there, it was never really courage. It was just self-improvement. There are 3 levels to this. The first is courage for yourself. Facing your own fears. Taking responsibility for your own life. Building your own character. This is where everyone must begin. You cannot skip this step. You cannot serve others if you have not first learned to stand on your own feet. You cannot fight for someone else if you cannot even fight for yourself. So you start here. You start with the conversation you have been avoiding. The habit you have been unable to break. The decision you have been unable to make. You start small and you build. The second level is courage for others. This is where it gets harder. Because now it is not just your comfort at stake. Now you are being asked to stand between someone else and the thing that threatens them. To speak up when someone is being treated unfairly. To defend someone who cannot defend themselves. To be the person in the room who says the thing that everyone is thinking but nobody is willing to say. This requires more than personal bravery. It requires moral courage. The willingness to pay a social cost. To be unpopular. To be misunderstood. To be the one who sticks their neck out while everyone else looks at the floor. And the third level. The highest expression. Courage for a cause. Something larger than yourself. Something that will outlast you. A principle you are willing to commit to even at great personal cost. This is where courage becomes heroism. Not because it is dramatic. Not because it is cinematic. But because it is sustained. It is courage practiced not for a day or a week but for a lifetime. It is the decision made over and over again, in the face of fear, in the face of fatigue, in the face of doubt, to serve something that matters more than your own comfort. And here is the thing that ties all three levels together. You cannot jump to level 3. You cannot serve a cause if you have not first mastered your own fears. You cannot fight for others if you are still running from yourself. The progression is built into the architecture. You start with the small daily acts of personal courage. You build the muscle. And then the muscle carries you further than you ever imagined you could go. But let me be honest with you about something. Because this is where a lot of people get the wrong idea. They hear about courage and they think it means being fearless. They think it means charging into every situation with your chest out and your head high. They think it means never feeling afraid. And that is not just wrong. That is dangerous. A person who feels no fear is not courageous. They are reckless. They are a hazard to themselves and everyone around them. Fear is information. Fear is data. A person who ignores that data is not brave. They are stupid. The courageous person feels the fear. Fully. Completely. They feel the tightening in the chest and the shallowness in the breath and the urge to run. They feel all of it. And then they make a decision. They consult the fear. They ask it what it has to say. And then they decide whether to listen. Sometimes they do. Sometimes the fear is right. Sometimes the fear is telling them something they need to hear. But more often, the fear is telling them exactly where they need to go. Exactly what they need to face. Exactly where the next frontier of their growth lies. And that is the reframing that I want you to carry with you. Fear is not a signal to stop. Fear is a compass. It points toward what matters. The things that scare you most are the things that matter most. The conversation you are dreading is the conversation that needs to happen. The project you are afraid to start is the project that needs to be started. The truth you are afraid to tell is the truth that needs to be told. The life you are afraid to live is the life that is waiting for you on the other side of the fear. So stop waiting for courage to arrive. It is not coming. It was never coming. Not because you do not deserve it. Not because the universe is cruel. But because courage does not work that way. Courage is not a delivery. It is a decision. It is a decision you make right now, in this moment, with the fear still in your chest and the doubt still in your mind and the voice still telling you to wait. You make the decision anyway. You take the step anyway. And the courage comes after. Not before. After. The feeling follows the action. It does not precede it. This is the secret that every courageous person in history has known. They were not braver than you. They were not built differently. They were not immune to fear. They simply learned that the action comes first. That you do not wait to feel ready. You act and the readiness follows. You act and the confidence follows. You act and the identity follows. Because you do not become courageous by feeling courageous. You become courageous by doing courageous things. And the doing comes first. Always. Think about what your life looks like right now. Think about the fears that are running the show from the dark. The conversations you have not had. The risks you have not taken. The words you have not spoken. The version of yourself you have not become. All of that is sitting in the shadow. All of that is governing your life from a room you refuse to enter. And every day you avoid that room, the shadow grows. Every day you choose comfort over courage, the fear gets a little louder and you get a little smaller. But here is the good news. The door is not locked. It was never locked. You have been standing outside a door that you could have opened at any time. And the only thing that was ever stopping you was the belief that you needed to feel brave first. You did not. You do not. You will not. You just need to turn the handle. You just need to take the step. You just need to make the decision that the fear does not get to make your choices for you anymore. And I know that sounds simple. And I know that simple does not mean easy. The fear will be there. The doubt will be there. The voice telling you to wait will be there. It will all be there. And you will do it anyway. Not because the fear disappears. Because you have decided what kind of person you are. And that kind of person does not wait for permission from their own fear. So here is what I want you to do today. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Today. One small thing. One thing you have been avoiding. One thing that makes your stomach tighten when you think about it. One thing that you have been telling yourself you will do when the time is right. Do it today. Do it while the fear is in the room. Do it while your hands are shaking. Do it badly if you have to. Do it imperfectly. Do it clumsily. But do it. Because the doing is the point. The doing is the practice. The doing is the deposit in the account. And the account grows. And one day you look back and you realize that you have become someone you do not even recognize. Not because you were born different. But because you showed up. Day after day. Fear after fear. Decision after decision. You showed up. The fear will always be there. It will show up at the door of every meaningful thing you will ever do. And you will open the door. And you will let it in. And you will say, I see you. I hear you. I know what you are telling me. And then you will walk past it. Not because it left. Because you decided to move. Courage was never a feeling. It was always a decision. Made in the presence of fear. Made before the fear had a chance to vote. Made by a person who decided that their life was worth more than their comfort. That their growth was worth more than their safety. That the person they could become was worth the price of walking through the fear to get there. That person is you. Not the version of you that is waiting. The version of you that decides. Right now. Today. Again tomorrow. Again the day after that. Not because it gets easier. Because you get stronger. Because the muscle grows. Because the shadow shrinks in the light. Because the fears you face become the strength you carry. Stop waiting for courage. It is not coming. It is not a feeling. It is a decision. And the decision is yours. Choose courage over comfort. Choose growth over ease. Stay disciplined.